isn't a prayer.
Liz asked me today.
Oh, so then, can't
Dreidel was, and I was explaining to her.
I found
She said,
this.
"Ann has one too." I said, "Yes."
Who are you talking
Liz.
about?
With my mom and dad's stuff.
Yeah.
So this was my dad's. Actually, I think it must have dried up, but because I don't really use it that much. But what's interesting is that the important part of the prayers are really large.
Uh-huh. Because if you
Yeah.
don't have good glasses, then you can.
Yeah, like when you're in third grade, you don't have good glasses.
No, when you're old,
I'm
That's when-
teasing.
yes.
Or it could be more important part.
Yeah,
maybe it could be, well, the ones that are likely to be, maybe.
The problem is that the kids don't want these.
Was your dad Orthodox or?
No, I think, I don't know, I bet you they were Reformed. Or
What synagogue?
out in Joliet, he was out in
Oh,
Joliet.
Joliet.
But Elgin was
My-
conservative.
Joliet might have been conservative too, because when
Yeah, I
we
think
had,
you're right.
when we had
Okay.
conclaves in District 6, BBYO. we
Yeah,
were conservative.
That's how I met my mom, through BDYO.
yeah, this is definitely a conservative sliding, conservative slash Orthodox Siddur, so, yeah.
I sure he did not daven that much.
Neat. Sacred artifacts.
Yeah. Who wants these items? Did you ever read the book, Outwitting History?
Oh, yeah, about the Jewish
With Alan
Yiddish books,
Lansky?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to the museum a couple times.
Parts
Oh, you
Because I
have
live-
been?
Yeah, because I lived like 40 minutes south, and so actually the really great time we took Sherry's mother when she was visiting once, who
Oh.
grew up speaking Yiddish.
Oh.
And
Is it
she was
amazing
in
to her?
heaven. She was just everything about the place. She was just so thrilled to be there.
You know, senior people, the Burkos, probably heard their name mentioned from time to time, they love that book too. I took them to Madison to meet Alan Lansky, when he came to visit.
Nice.
But it's such, well, they are in their 90s, and it really meant a lot to them. I mean, Riva grew up in Madison, and then Bill grew up around Milwaukee, and for him to go to medical school, he had to get a letter from his rabbi or cantor or somebody that he was a good young man, and because he ate his kosher meals at Riva's house, which is how they met. And like she would be leaving and going out on dates when Bill was there eating. And so then Bill realized, I better get on the ball here or I'm gonna lose Riva. You know, and thus.
See, and I can't only think of her as Roz,
I know.
because that's what
She, I don't know when she switched over.
it was
but-
when I was probably in my 20s or 30s.
Oh, I think it was
Yeah.
when they were going to Israel a whole lot.
Yeah, it was after Robert died.
Yeah, so
Yes.
this is the Kiddush version, this with Bafulu, which,
Right,
Where is it? Is it here? Uh-huh.
which is actually in the
Yeah.
Shtempfila.
oh, sure it is, yeah, but I learned how to sing that, I mean,
Right.
that was part of when you were.
It's,
Yeah.
We didn't
I
sing
just,
that
I
at
just do it
home.
straight up Torah trope, because it's,
Oh,
And this doesn't have Torah.
Genesis 1:31 and beginning of Genesis chapter 2. so.
Yeah, this doesn't have Torah trope in it, but I learned it.
Right.
so this is,
Which is challenging.
He apologized
for
for
nuns.
so I think the,
Deuteronomy 6.
Because somebody was
Oh,
saying that they
sure.
would give the house.
My grandfather said it's
interesting.
And I said, yeah, I just went back, I couldn't remember what book it was
It's
from.
not
Deuteronomy.
Yeah,
overly acidic.
one of
Right.
those things.
Yes.
What do you do with that? I go, well,
Which is the-
yeah.
All right,
all right, let's.
so let's get started.
Oh,
here.
can I tell you one more story?
Sure. Okay.
So my dad's middle name is Stewart. And so we named Garrett with his middle name, Garrett Stewart.
Right.
And my dad spells it Stuart.
Mhm.
And I'm fiddling around in the art basement one day and I found his bar mitzvah invitation and it said Stewart. So I'm like, oh, which one was I supposed to use for my dad? So I'm like, Dad, how do you spell your middle name? Thinking like,
Yeah.
because he was left-handed and probably had a little messy writing. So when I opened this up, it has Stewart.
Mhm.
And it got changed in transition. It's just there. Here's like, I think I might like it. more like this.
That's pretty, no, that's pretty crispy.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, because
Bossy.
my ex was
Yeah,
STU.
it's more British.
Oh, versus W.
Mhm. Yeah,
See,
but Stuart, I know is
EW
STU.
And EU can blend a lot of
As in,
things.
his name's in the alphabet. STU.
A-R-T.
No, in the alphabet.
QRSTU.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
Elaine, tell you a
And we
story.
had beef daddy instead of beef stew. The kids call
Oh,
it beef
my
daddy and stuff like that.
Right. On that note,
Yeah.
On that note,
Let's go.
it up, so bitty break Torah, so get up, so bitty break Torah, so get up, so bitty break Torah, so get up, so bitty break Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. All right, so you're gonna need to leave in a little bit, and so, and we got, not to play the numbers game, but we've got a small group today. I did wanna mention, and since everybody here was either on the Zoom link, or here on Sunday, since didn't have a chance to take questions, which I felt badly about, just ran out of time there. If anybody had any thoughts or comments or responses to the things I talked about on Sunday with Purim and the adult story of Purim and the Purim we don't teach our second graders.
yeah. I think my two students I spent a little time with before they got, as usual, off track, was that, we're the good guys. And usually in the stories, and, I had already told Milo, because that's how it is with him, you have to give him, he's so cynical. But Molly was like a little shell-shocked by it, and so I said, that's the whole story, when other time, well, that Jews went out and
That we went out and did the massacre.
75,000 people, and that there were other instances in the Torah where we do that, have done that, and or that we were, I think, Milo might have said where we were ordered to go do that. Thinking of Joshua.
Yeah, Joshua
And she was like-
is a particularly bloody and brutal book. It's someone once likened the book of Joshua and saying, it's one book in the Tanakh, and book of Joshua in terms of its relationship to the entire Tanakh, it'd be like studying American history, but with a focus on the genocide of the indigenous peoples,
Yeah.
which, I mean, it's.
Because God told you to do it.
Yeah.
Purportedly again. So I said, I made the point with her that, see, this isn't gonna be the Sunday school you always went to. This is different. And she just sat there and went, oh, well, she says, I won't be coming next time, but I'll be here for all of April. And this is a kid that we didn't think was gonna come at all.
Yeah,
So you caught her intrigued.
Good.
yeah.
It's too bad that that's the hook, but I think
Well,
it's
yeah,
the
but-
fact that she's being treated like an adult.
Yeah.
I also mentioned yesterday to Alice, we happened to be chatting about something else. And I said that how much the students enjoyed, all four of them, two of them were on Zoom and two of them were here. And that they liked being included in the adult programs, and that the adult education committee should know that. And that parents were here and there were a lot of people in the room on a Sunday, and how that blends the two groups together.
Right.
And that the committee should program more like that. I will tell them, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, and that group of post-benemits for kids.
Yeah.
Felt, I don't want to use the word honored, but that was the idea, that they felt elevated to be included.
They were
Right.
part of the grown-ups. They
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, that was a good way to
Yeah.
connect them. So I'm hoping that will.
That's true, we never did go past that in our youth.
No.
But you know what, it makes me also think about,
Age
with
appropriate, something
the
else.
Egyptians, when we fled Egypt, and then God had a,
That's probably
kind of score, like point this finger at us and say, you know, don't be joyous about the other ones that have to be killed.
That's true, but we were also told to go.
Yeah, we
rob
also
all of
looted,
them.
we also
Go
looted
take
the
their-
joint.
Their stuff,
We
yeah.
also looted the joint on the way out, so.
Yeah. Nobody talks about that. And
No.
there's another point for the next holiday.
Yes.
I don't know, should we tell them?
Oh, my
I'm trying.
I hope you keep doing it every
Yeah.
holiday. I mean, I learned a lot, and I think even if you do it again next year, I'm sure I'll learn more, because not everything sticks.
Oh, you have to do it
Like it used
forever.
to. Yeah, I don't know. I do have to do it forever.
Yeah, really.
But, you know, I am firmly committed to the idea that, you know, and Purim especially, like I wrote in the bulletin, it's like, I grew up thinking it was a kid's holiday, which I assume many people did and still do think of it in that way. And wasn't until seminary, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Seriously? There are, I mean, I have done in previous congregations, I have done various iterations of adult Purim parties. And which can be great fun. One was a concert called Laughter and Libations. And I invited a colleague of mine, a couple of colleagues of mine, and we presented a program of comedy songs written by Jews. And
that's
so lots
really
of
cool, yeah.
Tom Lehrer and Alan Sherman and Gene Raskin and
Because I wonder if they
like that.
remember, they're
So-
not around anymore. And
I think Tom Lehrer is still living.
Tom Lehrer is still living,
He's in his
yeah.
90s. but he's
Yeah,
still
and wants absolutely, and is absolutely completely uninterested in the music that he wrote back then.
Or
and-
much of anything.
Or, right, well, yeah, and I mean, he's on record as he grew up culturally Jewish, lox and bagels Jewish, but no religion Jewish. But I've done that, and, you know, it can be great fun if you get a bunch of adults together, you know, and it's
So
like,
usually we're
no
successful.
kids, no kids. And you get people with common sense who you can trust to man the bar, as it were, to make sure nobody goes too overboard. But those have been great fun. Those have been great fun. I didn't get to one thing I didn't get to on Sunday was the whole tradition of Telo Yada, the drinking until you don't know the difference between blessed be Mordecai and cursed be Haman, which is a part of the Purim tradition. But it's a relatively contentious one in that Maimonides, the Rambam, who among his many other accomplishments, he was a physician. And he hated that tradition. He was just like, this is horrible. No, we should not. Our bodies are a gift from God. We should not be harming them in any way like this. And you shall live by these commandments. And he despised that tradition of excess drinking on Purim. And our tradition has also said that regarding that practice, that it is perfectly acceptable if you don't want to get that drunk. It is perfectly acceptable to lie if you're confronted about it. That someone says, "Are you drunk enough to be able to?" Oh, I don't even know who Abram Mordecai. You're allowed to lie in that instance.
Why
You
is
can,
that so that you're supposed to get mixed up?
because the whole holiday is
Is-
everything gets topsy-turvy, everything gets crazy. It opens up the opening chapter, Ahasuerus is having this 6-month-long party, for the entire empire, and then another 7 days of solid partying for everybody, not just the nobles, but everybody. And the line in the Megillah, chapter 1, is the rule for drinking was no restrictions. So it
Well,
was.
maybe the Jews wouldn't have been saved if the king wasn't drunk and everything else.
So, yeah, I think everything's cartoonish.
Yeah.
Right,
said.
exactly. That's one of the things I hope came across on Sunday, that it's a very tightly scripted farce. I directed what the Butler saw in college, which was great fun. And I can imagine Joe Orton looking at the Book of Esther and saying, this is good. Oh, this is, it's okay, good, yeah.
I think doing things year after year is good because in a way, people get a chance to, they get some affirmation about, yeah, I remember that. I know that. Because it's giving people a chance to affirm their knowledge and as well as adding on to it and ask questions based on surmises about what might be next is a really good way of building their connection to things. There's the teacher talking, but
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know if it's every 5 years or 10 years, I have no idea, but my mother-in-law, she was not Jewish. And she found, she lived out in Phoenix, I took the kids out there all the time, and she found a fiddler on the roof, maybe one of the garbage pails, where you buy them for $2.99 or something. So we stayed up for several nights after we put the kids to bed to watch it, and I was able to tell her like what traditions we had, what things were parallel. But the biggest thing I noticed was I was now a mom. And so when you go through different times in life, the movie like looked totally different than I'd ever seen it before. And that's when I realized that myself, you need to, the way you do your Seder when the kids are with coloring books, and the way you're gonna do it later when someone wants to have an argument, you have to repeat that. It doesn't happen once in a lifetime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I cherish the repetition or repeat it again.
Yeah, and your life events, where you are in your life, just changes your perspective.
You read a book when you're 16,
Right.
and you read it again when you're 32, and it's a whole different.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I did that.
the whole reason.
And prayers, things.
But we change.
Yeah, we change.
That's
Anyway.
it. First thing it's saying.
But it's like,
But the prayers do change.
Yes.
As we've been
Yes.
seeing
Yes.
over the past few months, the prayers do change.
There's no.
last week when you were talking about the difference between Hakol and 18,
Oh, yeah.
even though the prayer is the same, it made me think differently about
Yeah.
Mhm.
meaning of
Thought to
it.
that
So you're always
myself.
learning, yeah.
I've had some close call, a couple of close calls myself.
With what?
Almost died twice. If it weren't for a doctor that made some good
Oh,
catches.
they were kidney, right?
Well, it was that,
Yeah.
my kidney, and then catching my autoimmune. Lupus.
Yeah, I thought about that chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So, see, you are making a difference.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Yes.
There's one more that I've wondered about for a while. At the end of the Megillah reading, there's that one long section that you're supposed to do in one breath.
Right.
Where did that come from?
There again, there's, I didn't get to that, and I had to select what I was going to be highlighting.
Can you share it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it is in chapter 9. It's even laid out differently. It's even laid out differently in the Megillah scroll, which I'm surprised Emmanuel does not have one. But
We
I had
had,
it with Steve's.
was it his and he took
I
it?
bet you it was his, because he always had one
It's
with
not
his.
in there anymore? Okay,
I mean,
it must have been his, because it wouldn't have disappeared, just disappeared.
So this was from that section towards the end where, Mordecai and Esther are now calling shots, and the king's saying, yep, do whatever you want. And so it is this goofy tradition developed of chanting all of this string of names. It's the 10 sons of Haman. But the occasion of the chanting them, even though it's done in a humorous and silly fashion, is they all get hung as well. They all get put to death as well. So again, it's an odd book, and especially from our sensibilities as 21st century Americans, it's like, it's this funny bit where we're going to read all the names of Haman's sons really quick as they're killed, as they're put to death.
so was there killing like of a different calibration than going out into the community and killing everybody? Because the Jews then had the permission, they had to go and defend themselves and have war. But the brothers, the sons, they're getting hung like in a different way, a different meaning. Is that, you see what I'm saying?
And Haman gets killed
Yeah.
on either hung or impaled, depending on your translation, on the spike he put up for Mordecai.
Right.
But they don't just stop at Haman. They kill his 10 sons as well.
Right, so that's like a this, and then the rest that goes on in the killing is something different. All right.
I guess.
Or killing is killing.
It depends on, I guess it depends on your perspective. Again, that, as I started on Sunday, this book is a work of fiction. Okay, it's a story, it's fiction. And clearly we've got powerful elements of a revenge fantasy here.
Mhm.
Remember, this is the first, this is the earliest biblical book that's a diaspora book, and there are constant references to the fact that, you know, not too long ago, the Babylonians destroyed the temple and carried a bunch of us off to be slaves here in Babylon, which has now been taken over by Persia. But there is this sense of helplessness that pervades much of the book until the very end, where it's like, well, we're not helpless anymore. We're gonna, yeah.
I have a theory about why you're supposed to read it in one breath.
Hmm.
How many sons?
10.
Just like we diminish our joy at the death of,
The Egyptians.
Mhm.
10
You can't linger over the death of those people if you have to read it in one breath. I realize it's, 75,000 faceless people, when you mention it in just one verse maybe.
Right.
But the same thing here, you have to just spit those all out in one breath, and maybe it's a way of balancing out and not spending too much time trying to something over the death of some human beings with names, no
Yeah, I
less.
like
I
that.
don't know.
I like that interpretation. I have no idea whether the traditional understanding of it is that, but I think that's perfectly valid. And
I'm always looking out for
I'm all for that.
Schadenfreude,
right. I mean, no, this book is Schadenfreude writ large. And it's like,
Yeah, and just incidentally, we're starting at entry level Megillah are $1,200 for kosher ones.
yes, yeah.
Or-
I did some
Entry level, yeah.
I did some looking online. It's like,
Doesn't need to be kosher.
well, I ordered a paper one from Israel that will hopefully be here by Sunday, and
Okay.
Oh,
and it's- and
thank
it's-
you, but
yeah.
I think
to the tune of $11. I figured the temple could handle that.
Well,
But yeah, I mean,
No.
we
That's
could
fine.
maybe put something in the bulletin and ask if there are people who would like to contribute towards the purchase of one, that we should have one. We had one at one time. It was the property of a former spiritual leader. And so we don't have one. We should have one. We have a stand-in for one, thanks to Cantor Levson, but we should have one as a community, and we could maybe say that we need between $1,200 and $1,500 collectively, and then if people are interested in contributing towards one, if we have that amount of money, we can purchase one.
might possibly be a fundraising opportunity.
Would it
as
come,
well.
does it come in the silver thing, or does it just come as?
I don't know, we
It-
have to see.
They
We can do a
it'll
little
depend.
looking to see, because
Yeah.
if it just comes as a scroll, because I see cases for
Yeah.
sale separately for like
Yeah.
$350,
Yeah.
$400.
I just saw
So-
one for 330.
We could ask
Mhm.
people for something like that. A lot of times, if it's a specific item for a specific amount of money, sometimes there are people who will contribute,
Yeah.
especially for a ritual
People
object.
like to
They might
contribute
not
for
contribute
stuff.
for a crack in the wall in the
Right.
basement, which we could just ask.
Yeah.
It never hurts to ask. But what I don't want is for somebody to write a check.
But somebody might.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, not that, the other thing, but
For $1,500, because you
Plus
don't,
the case.
don't give people a chance to do a mitzvah when you do that.
let's talk more about this, and this is something I think we can do for next year, definitely. And maybe make it part of a larger
We could talk
fundraising
about
effort.
it at the board meeting maybe or something, but just, I mean, it's not a huge chunk of money. And I know there are other, more mundane things we need. Maintenance
pressing.
kinds of
Yes.
donations, please pay the electric bill for a year or something like that.
Parking lot.
Yeah, but this is a special kind of thing that,
Yeah.
for a special occasion to make a donation towards it. I know I always looking for
We
something.
could mention it on Sunday, just saying we're hoping, just saying we have this one, but we're hoping to raise money, so watch for details.
Oh, good
Just to
idea.
get it in
That's
people's
perfect,
heads.
because then we'll have people on Zoom too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do not expect a single person, because we want many people to participate in that mitzvah.
Yeah, that is a tough one, because I mean, there are people, I mean, there was one thing, which is like, where someone had given it, but they didn't give a large amount, where other people gave really large amounts, and then they.
Well, this is like the roof, we had $5.
Yep.
And we had $1,000 for our $25,000 roof, we had it in 2 months.
Well, look at what we did to pay off the mortgage.
Right, that very quickly.
But I think some people would have liked to, it was so quick, some
Yeah,
people couldn't be a
That's
participant.
true, that's the problem with people
Yeah.
writing big checks. When we did the addition, we did $250,000, and we did that pretty quickly. too.
Yeah. Well, and we're gonna have to do it soon for other things.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta fix
Just
that
have to
wall.
Design it right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
do
But at
it, let's
least
do it
we
strategically.
figured something out,
yeah.
that's great, that'll be very celebratory.
And we can paint. Everyone show up in your paint clothes. And we're gonna
No.
Don't talk to Ann about painting right now. All right, couple other Puramacious things just to
Yes.
mention. So there are a couple of digressions in the Amidah, and I figure since we're almost Purim, this would be the time to take a look at them. So in the weekday morning service, we've been looking at the Amidah. We've done the first two of the 19, misnamed the 18. We did Avot V'Imahot. We've done Gibberot. Kiddushat Hashem, the holiness of the name, is the third one, and then the three ending brachot, the three concluding one, which are also the same on Shabbat. Those the first three and the last three don't change. You have the Ritzeh, which talking about which its themes get complicated because it talks about in its original form it talks about the sacrifices that occurred at the temple, and so reform liturgy has changed its text on this as well and omitted a line. We'll look at that a little bit. But the following page, 94, is called Modim. It's the Hoda'ah prayer, and it's a praise of thanks. So in the middle of this prayer, on two occasions, on Hanukkah and on Purim, there is an insert into the Hoda'ah prayer. So you can see on 94 in the middle here, the straightforward translation. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, God of our ancestors forever, rock of our lives, shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. Good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. And then you see the little italicized small print. You've got additions in the middle of this prayer. So if we flip to 557, we get Purim. We get the Purim iteration, and it's and you can see on the opposing page on 556, the text of the Hanukkah insert is longer, but they both begin with this text Al Hanisim Al Urkan for the miracles and the redemptions, the mighty deeds, and some of you may know it from the Israeli tune. Al hanisim ve'al ha'urkam ve'al ha'urim ve'al ha'jurim ve'al ha'milchamot she'asita la'avoteinu b'yamim ha'hem b'zman hazeh. So we've got both. This appears on both Hanukkah and Purim. These are the idea being, as I mentioned on Sunday, that Purim, God's name doesn't appear at all. God is hidden behind the scenes, but God doesn't directly intervene. And in Hanukkah as well, the understanding, the notion is within the tradition that God did not come down and presto changeo make miracles. The miracle was the fact that we were able to defeat a much larger and more powerful military power and managed to kick them out of our land. I do appreciate the fact that the translation for both the Hanukkah and the Purim translation for this Al Hanisim text, Al HaMilchamot, for the wars, that you waged for our ancestors in these days of old at this season. And so in Hanukkah, we waged a war against the Syrian Greeks. Right. Well, and on Purim, we take the war to our enemies before they can do it to us at the end of the Megillah. This is tricky because, of course, again, our sensibilities as 21st century Americans, we have problems with that. But it's common there are multiple names for God within our liturgy. There are multiple images. There are multiple images that we have that define, depending on the context that we use. And one of them is, we do it every morning and evening. We do it at the Michamocha prayer, in the Geulah prayer, the prayer for redemption. And in a traditional prayer book, we've seen that the Psalm of the Sea is actually part of the morning section of blessings. But it's recalled in Michamocha as well. And this notion of Adonai Ish Milchama, Adonai is a God of war, and it's like we kicked the Egyptians' tuchuses. I think I joked about this already. This is an image of God as Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Conan movies. It's like with a broadsword this long and taking it to the Egyptians. And it's especially difficult now as we hear about events in Ukraine and as a friend of mine, very politically savvy and astute, who said he lives in Belgium right now, so he's got a different perspective on things as well. And he said, yeah, it's terrible, it's horrible, all the, he said the one silver lining is the fact that Putin's fighting the last war. And this is not a 21st century war. Okay, this is in a lot of ways, this is a 19th century war, but it's being recorded on iPhones with 21st century technology, and the whole.
By the way, it's a land war, or
he's polarizing cities, but
Right.
people are talking about doing it in a meaningful way.
He's physically going in on the ground with a larger military force to try to take over a neighboring country, as opposed to cyber warfare. And we're already seeing the rather fascinating social media war that's been going on, and how well President Zelensky of Ukraine has been dominating that, and how he has, you want to talk an influencer on social media, he's the number one right now.
It's amazing.
It's also amazing to see that with the sanctions on Russia and the cutting off of funds to Russia, the posts that come to Twitter and Facebook and like that, they've changed rather dramatically because the Russian bots aren't doing it.
Right.
Because the folks in Russia, being paid to make social media posts to sow dissent in the West, they're not getting paid, so those posts aren't being made, and so all of a sudden, all of those posts are different. So, but we've got to, we have both on Hanukkah and on Purim this notion that that yes, our God, when necessary, can be a God of war.
But here's the wars you waged for our ancestors. It's like taking responsibility from people. God, it's God's, I don't know, I see it.
It says God heals you too.
Yeah.
And we know that, we don't take that literally either.
Right. But it just kind of is like you wage for it, and God's not even mentioned in the book, so I don't know, it just kind of.
Don't take
for me.
I think because this prayer is way after the fact,
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, but,
I'm sure people tried to sanitize it a little bit, but
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah, so even though they were out there doing that, it was God was
yeah, I mean,
the general.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any more first person active than any other thing that is attributed to God necessarily. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
I mean, if you want to say God did it, I mean, we talk about
Yeah.
mighty hand and an outstretched arm.
Mhm.
I don't think those hands and the arm are empty. There are weapons in them.
I never thought about that.
Uh-huh.
oh, yeah,
Well, if you stretch your arm out
Mhm.
to an enemy, you're not barehanded, or you've got a
Right.
sword or a spear or something, or a shield on your arm.
But there really weren't Hasmoneans, right? I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
was different also. I mean.
Right, and we do have some corroborating texts for the events that we know of in the Hanukkah story. That has more of a, that actually has a historical
Mhm.
basis, whereas again, the Purim story is just, it's so fictitious. It's like,
Yeah.
like you said, it's a cartoon. Okay, it's really, you know, it borders on Bugs Bunny levels of irreverence and or maybe not Bugs Bunny or Roadrunner. I mean,
Mhm.
Roadrunner and Coyote kinds of levels of irreverence, but violence. I think back to those cartoons and watching them as kids.
Oh, yeah.
Just, you know,
I watched this for a long time, for a while.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Garrett.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating to look at, if you want eye-opening stuff, since Springfield, Mass. is the home of the Arkansas Dr. Seuss, there is a Dr. Seuss museum there, and then we went there. I've got a picture of myself with a bronze statue of the Grinch, which is pretty fun.
Oh.
But you know, his wartime cartoons that he made during World War II, and this also extended to Bugs Bunny and to everybody. I mean, it was total war,
Yeah.
and the rather horrific depictions from in Dr. Seuss's cartoony style of especially the Japanese that we were
Oh, yeah.
Well,
fighting.
they took them off the
Horrifically
shelf.
racist. Yeah, I mean, right, the book, the thing that I saw on Mulberry Street being in Springfield, Mass. There's that one image there, but the wartime cartoons of the time. Whew,
Even the post-war Warner Brothers cartoons depicted Japanese very unflatteringly, to say the least.
Mhm.
You know, so.
Isn't there a Dr. Seuss thing in Chicago?
It used to be the water tower.
Yeah, there's something there. I
There
don't know if
was
it's
a,
still
there
there.
was
It's a store.
a store that was
Oh.
selling a lot of
His drawings.
Yeah, okay.
It's
Like
still
that was
there,
it.
at least as far as I know.
Oh, I should go look.
At least, what, a couple of years ago, or
Yeah, I think we saw it.
a
when
couple
we
of years ago,
we went
I know,
shopping,
when we had the annual meeting and I was in Chicago with my family,
Okay,
we went there.
okay.
The time
Yeah,
we
you
had
see all
that
the
fateful
tree
phone
lines.
call that said, would you be the co-president?
Mhm. Well, nobody else wanted it.
Well, I stayed
Yeah.
outside the Orbis store.
I gotta
All
go
right.
pick up Denise.
You gotta go pick up Denise, give her a hug.
Oh, so you dropped her off?
Yeah.
And I will tell her I will cook if she wants
Yeah.
something. I can't drive.
I cooked for her.
I will.
It's a shock.
Wow.
Cooking.
I will cook.
They were
I
cookies.
can't drive, but I will
But you ate
cook.
them on the way. But you're
I'll
welcome.
cook a meal, not cookies.
Well,
I she wants
Is
cookies.
this her last one for right now?
For now, and then she gets her hip replaced. It was April 3rd, but she can't work right now. It's just tired.
Yeah.
Too much for her.
All right, we'll give her our
Thank
best.
you.
I will.
Thank you for doing this mitzvah.
Give her our love, and
I
again,
will.
I will be happy to cook.
Cindy told me that she's now said she needs, and Cindy's trying, she's gonna need, she can't do it. So Cindy's trying to put something together and she's gonna get back to us.
Oh, okay, because we had to sit
Yeah.
back down for a little bit.
Right. So,
Okay,
all
take care.
right, see you.
Bye.
All
You
right.
know, and with Hanukkah too, not that we're talking about Hanukkah, but it took time and patience and devotion for the people to regather that decided to go more Greek. And then again, back to being with Mattathias.
I mean, yeah, the Hashmonean revolt, I mean, that took place over the course of 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 3 years of warfare that happened. Purim, it's very quick. It's,
Yeah, but I like seeing them side by side as a comparison of like God's involvement.
mhm. Yeah, so this is the insert text, and then at the bottom of 557, you've got Bimeim, Mordechai, Esther. In the days of Mordecai and Esther, the wicked Haman arose in Persia, plotting the destruction of all the Jews. He planned to destroy them in a single day on the 13th of Adar, and to permit the plunder of their possessions. But through your great mercy, his plan was thwarted, his scheme frustrated. We therefore thank and bless you, O great and gracious God, which again is unusual since God does not appear as a character in the book of
Yeah.
Esther. But as you said, Mark, this prayer was definitely written long after the fact. And the understanding is God is Wizard of Oz in the book of Esther. They pay no attention to the God behind the curtain.
Right, right.
Okay. And as I said this on Sunday as well. The whole progression in Tanakh is one of extreme anthropomorphization of God and God's direct physical involvement in human affairs, and then slowly backing off through the course of the Tanakh until the book of Esther, one of the very latest, where God's name doesn't appear. God's name isn't there. So it's this slow kind of, and that parallels a certain maturation of people.
Exactly, I was thinking.
As a we're the people, the human beings are growing up and becoming, having rough spots as teenagers, as it were, at various points, but ultimately working their way towards adulthood where they don't need the all-powerful parental God doing everything for them.
I see them all the way through most of the Tanakh, most of the the 5 books.
Yeah.
And then they get to, the books, the Kings and so on, and they act like stupid adults.
Well, yes, they certainly make some poor choices there. One other thing about Purim, which I just wanted to call your attention to. So on page 573, and it's also paired with Hanukkah blessings on 572. Although there aren't specific, we don't specifically light candles for Purim. There's no candle lighting for Purim.
Or anything like that.
There have been some humorous settings of a Purim Kiddush.
Well, there's drinking involved. after
Yes,
all,
right. But
Lovey-dovey.
No, I think more like scotch and schnapps and
Yeah.
stuff like that, maybe sort of this.
time honored
Yeah,
tradition. But you can see the 3 Hanukkah candle blessings that we're all very familiar with. And then on the opposing side for the reading of the Megillah, the second and third of those blessings are the same. We thank God who performed wondrous deeds for our ancestors in days of old at this season. It's the exact same wording as the second Hanukkah candle blessing. And we say Shehechianu because we are hearing the Megillah for the first time in a year. And so this is the occasion that we would say Shehechianu when we do something once a year.
Does it start at sundown like the night before, or it starts on the day?
Yeah.
Dark
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. Yep. So the one little humorous connection that I'll mention, at least within the Ashkenazi musical tradition. The first blessing, and this is we're going to do these on Sunday, and the first one, the standard mitzvah formulation, made us holy with your commandments, and commanded us al mikra Megillah, commanding us to read the Megillah. Okay, so it's one of the four mitzvot for the holiday. Okay, we are commanded to read the Megillah, but in a fascinating little musical joke that I mentioned, that Purim is 6 months separate from the High Holy Days, right? The melody for these blessings for Purim is traditionally within the Ashkenazi custom. It's the same melody you do for the blessings before the shofar.
Oh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mikra Megillah.
That's very, very.
It's the exact same tune as for,
Funny.
yeah, it is.
It's a sublime and a ridiculous.
Right, exactly. It's like this, the
Like very
big,
majestic.
dramatic,
Yeah.
majestic moment of hearing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah and then here for Purim. And
You're standing here in pirate outfit.
in our pirate outfits and with our noisemakers
Instead of
and
white.
so on.
Yeah.
Right, no, I didn't get to go into it quite as much as I wanted to on Sunday, but
Very nice.
the opposite natures of Purim and Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. And as I've said often, Judaism tends to strike a middle path towards most things, and acknowledges, we've talked about the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the good influence and the bad influence that all of us have, and that's what makes us human. And as a result, we tend not to veer too hard towards one extreme or another. There are plenty of ancient cultures who, and contemporary ones, I might say, who basically said, if it's enjoyable, it's sinful, don't do it. Okay, and there have
It's
been
not us.
plenty of religious traditions that have tried to say that. Okay, that's not Jews. Okay, on the other end of the spectrum, there is hey, you only live once. Why not have as much fun as you possibly can?
Yeah.
And both of those philosophies were represented in ancient Greece, of course, and found their way into various religious traditions. Judaism, most of the time, steers a middle path. And one of the best examples is the use of wine in our ritual. And there are some religious traditions, Islam, for example, where it's like, no, you do not even, we had some Palestinian workers at HUC when I was there, in cantorial school and like that. And the rabbinic students and the cantorial students for some event, we ended up having to unload a truck with boxes of wine because they weren't going to even touch the boxes.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that extreme. And then of course there's the frat party, hedonistic, Dionysian revel, which we don't go in for either. But with a few exceptions. So for example, on Yom Kippur, we afflict ourselves and we don't eat and we don't drink and we avoid all forms of pleasure, and it's, as I've said, it's like a rehearsal for death.
But we don't do Ramadan either.
Right. And on Purim, we do have this tradition of Lo Yada, until you don't know the difference between blessed be Mordecai and cursed be Haman. And so there's this push and pull, but most of the time we're in this middle area. And the best example, of course, is we sanctify, we make holy Shabbat once a week with grape juice or wine. Okay, and it doesn't matter if it's fermented or not, but the fact that you can do it over fermented beverage, which, a little bit of wine for most people makes you feel happy, makes you.
As children, I don't ever remember my parents giving us grape juice.
Mhm.
From toddlerhood, I don't ever remember grape juice for Shabbat. It was always mocha daker
I think so,
manischewitz on the
too.
table,
Well,
always.
because I remember like, like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we had little shot glasses that we used every
That's my
week.
sister.
And that was, and God, not challah. We had one slice of white bread. My mom doused it in salt, we cut it up in the appropriate number of pieces, and that was motzi. Ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, you couldn't buy challah where we lived in. My mother just didn't bake it, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Judaism usually tries to strike a middle ground between extreme hedonism and extreme asceticism.
But that, you think that, that started happening more in the early 1900s or middle 1800s?
No.
Like way back when, like the religious people too?
I know.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, and again, back to Jose, my classmate, Jose Wolf's question to Larry Hoffman that I referenced from my notes a couple of weeks ago was like, is all liturgy, a polemic against something else? And it's like, not necessarily, and keep in mind that much of it's written long after the fact. But there were, as I said, there were the folks in ancient Greece who were worshippers of Dionysus, who would get drunk off their tuchus and go out into the forest, run around naked, and and Judaism, and Judaism said, no, we're not doing that. But then there were also ascetics in the Greek and the Roman tradition, and in the Jewish tradition, the Essenes by the Dead Sea. I mean, it's like no, if it's pleasurable, it's forbidden.
But where are they now?
Right. Well, as I've said, it's hard to be a really strict religious order if you're living out in the middle of nowhere and you're celibate. It's really hard to keep that going.
That was my point.
Yeah, it's really hard to have any longevity in
Even
it.
now,
But-
I think personally, it is hard to be a fully practicing, all out, full heart in Jew and be joyless.
Yeah.
And you what was?
Joyless.
Oh,
Right. And that's something I come back to time and time again, and I'll schedule with Carrie. I want to schedule a pre-Passover session like we did this past Sunday.
Mhm.
But one of the things I've hammered for decades now to folks who have said, "Oh, Passover Seder's is so boring." It's like, you're doing them wrong.
yeah.
Okay? If your Seder is boring, you're doing it incorrectly. I'm sorry. Okay? And yes, I certainly sat through, and I remember Orthodox Seders where it's like we didn't eat until 11 o'clock at night, and it was just this constant stream of Hebrew and Aramaic and on and on, and nobody knew what they were saying, and it's like, right, right, and it's like there is no excuse for doing that. Okay, there is no, so, and the other piece is, unfortunately, that we Jews in America, again, Reform Jews in America, there's been, when we've spoken about this, and we wanted to fit in. Okay, we wanted to fit in with our Christian neighbors and demonstrate that we were just as civilized as them, and that meant either glossing over or completely getting rid of certain cultural traditions that oftentimes were expressions of great joy. And okay, we'll make our services very serious, and we'll do the service mostly in English. And
Very
you will,
Protestant.
we will be very Protestant. And yeah, exactly. It's like you will read what's in italics in the book and nothing more. You will hear the choir that you do not see because they're behind the ark. You will hear the choir sing Kadosh, 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 Holy, Holy, but you will not be singing along. You will not. This is not for you to sing along with. It's like there's that, and of course, unfortunately, we've got a lot of tragedy that we do process every year, and especially in the wake of the Shoah, and so as my teacher, Rabbi David Zaslow, has said on many occasions, like, we Jews are really great at oi. Joy, we have trouble with sometimes. Okay, joy sometimes feels like a lot more work, which is why, the anecdote I started Sunday with about the guy telling Rabbi Adam Blickfeld about, well, I bring my son to Yom Kippur every year without fail. It's like, are you nuts? Are you out of your
I
mind?
could hear the shoulders relaxing almost when you said that.
Yeah.
I could hear really seriously.
Yeah, and this, again, the counterbalance between the extremes of Yom Kippur and Purim, it's like, but they're both equally important to our being fully Jewish, I would maintain. They are both of equal importance, and as the famous saying from Ecclesiastes goes, a time for every occasion under heaven, and you need to have both, and you should have both. And it's really easy, it's really easy to be guilted into coming to Yom HaShoah observances.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's like, if you don't go to the community Yom HaShoah, sort of, oh, terrible Jew. Because it's like, but it's like, Purim, that's for the little kids. It's like, no, they're both as important.
Yes.
Yeah. I hesitate, and I almost say turn off the recording when I say this. But what the heck? I mean, we're observing Purim on Sunday morning, March 13th. That is not Purim. Purim begins on Wednesday, the 16th in the evening, and Purim Day is, ironically enough, March 17th. St. Patty's Day Purim.
Yes.
But if you have never had the occasion of doing a full-on Purim and a full-on Megillah reading with a group of Orthodox Jews, then you're missing out on something pretty amazing, because quite frankly, they know how to party.
They do.
They know how to party. I remember, it's,
My own community was, we had absorbed a small, almost shtetl Orthodox synagogue in my hometown. Oh, it was like a shtetl synagogue. It was banged together, wooden, creaky. You got up to the women's section by an exterior stairway.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where I think my dad had his bar mitzvah there, if I'm not mistaken. And we went there as children. In Hebrew school, late in the afternoon, we went to see like a Mincha service, whatever. And the girls were all upstairs, boys were downstairs, and the old men were there downstairs, and they're very, shuffling, whatever. And I swear, it was like later when I saw Fiddler on the Roof, it was like, I've been there. I swear. But those guys, when they shut down the old 9th Street Shul, B'nai Jacob, we absorbed them. So we were a hybrid. They had the Minkamara minion during the week was a lot of those guys would come in. And between the two services, there'd be a little break. And the ladies in the kitchen would put out schnapps and a little rye bread and some herring for a little snack, and then they go back upstairs, and it'll be a lot easier to pick up the service. But no, and so, but when Purim came along, the men's club had this big blowout for the kids, big carnival with rides in the parking lot. It's a big, huge synagogue. But man, when we read the Megillah, those guys were yelling and screaming
and pounding back the
Woo!
shelves.
You betcha they were. They were wild. And my dad was like, "Don't look." I really can remember that much. I remember not a lot of details.
All right.
They were nuts.
It is 11:35. We're a small group, and I'm thinking rather than start into the Kedusha right now, I'm thinking, why don't we just say, call it a day for right now. I know I'll see all three of you at Purim because.
What time is the schedule?
Turn off the recording.
Yeah.
So there are going to be games and activities going on at 10.
10 o'clock.
Starting at 10 with the, and plan on being here